Hey friends, welcome to episode 9 of our science fiction book club read along. We are reading The Terraformers by Annalee Newitz. Today we'll be reading from chapter 18. It's a short chapter, so we're going to read the whole thing, and then next time we are going to skip ahead to chapter 22. As always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments. Please drop a line and let me know what you're liking, what you're thinking about the book so far. And with no further ado, chapter 18, Damage. Our bodies are ecosystems, from the Environmental Rescue Team Handbook. Destry had never received a message like it before. The video was short, and Ronnie looked like she'd been awakened after an intoxicated blackout. Her eyes were sunken, her hair dull, and there was no stiff professional collar framing her neck. She said nothing, simply sighed and flicked an appointment request at the camera. Ronnie was summoning Destry and representatives of the occupation at Spider Mountain to the bargaining table. She'd attached some documents containing a lot of formal league language to signal a treaty discussion. Destry stared at the message, now an obnoxiously blinking hologram blocking the view of Whistle's berth in Spider City's rehab center. Dozens of injured people were recuperating in this hall, its arched ceiling lit by twinkling yellow lights attached to vines that grew everywhere on the porous volcanic rock. Each patient had their own room, sealed to prevent infection, and in Whistle's case, to keep the atmosphere tuned to the mix of gases on Sasky's surface. Health workers shuttled between rooms while friends and family lounged in chairs and cushions that created a strip of color and calm down the center of the hallway. If someone woke up alone in their room, the first thing they would see were their people right outside. It had been only 12 hours since the attack. After the Moose had joined the battle, Verdants hadn't exactly surrendered, but they had withdrawn and stopped shooting. Spider City people were still sending video and audio from the lava fields at Fort Canyon, where the river banked off hot, hardening rock and slid into its old bed without complaint, as if it had been waiting millennia for an invitation. Every few minutes, she'd catch another glimpse of the rippling, steaming waters. But Destry couldn't think about the new dam or the weird video of Ronnie. All she cared about was what was happening inside Whistle's brain. Midnight, arriving from the dining hall, sent a text. Any news? The Moose had almost passed out from exhaustion before Destry forced her to go eat. Lucky was with her now, carrying a bowl of oatmeal and dried apricots, a scoop of yogurt on top. No news. He's still stable. Lucky held out the bowl to Destry. You should eat some breakfast. Is it morning already? Yeah, and we need you to have some energy, okay? Lucky glanced at the hologram and their eyebrows arched in surprise. What in the burning compost pile is that? Destry passed the message to Lucky's mobile, and they poked it to open the video file of Ronnie looking like a corpse. Midnight glanced at it and then back at Whistle, sleeping in a sling, his head bandaged. I'm going to make her sorry she did this, she said. The health team had cut off Whistle's other antler when they cleaned his wound. He'd suffered a massive brain injury, but he would heal. The monomers implanted in his cells before he was decanted were spinning electrically conductive polymers to replace the neurons he lost. Everything would be fine as long as he never suffered another major injury again. In L'Orange, engineers built mounts with those monomers as a failsafe. People with higher INAS ratings had cellular scrubbers, of course, little nanobot swarms in their blood that regenerated tissue. Mounts were treated like equipment, so their templates called for nothing more than one-time emergency repair wires. Those ass-wormy templates. He'd never survive another blow like this one. Destry recalled Whistle's dark, reflective eyes when he was looking at the world for the first time after decanting. Why had she let them build her a mount? She could have pushed back harder, insisting her partner be a person. But after her parents' death, she couldn't stand the sight of people anymore, especially hominins. She'd thought working with a mount would be like working alone or with an animal. As soon as Whistle stood on his own, though, she knew she was wrong. And then it was too late. He was alive and staring at her with a million thoughts he couldn't express. Lucky was gawking at the video of Ronnie in disbelief. This is all thanks to you, Midnight. I mean, you and the Moose of L'Orange. They shot a glance at Destry. You too, Homo sapiens. This treaty could actually work. We could stop hiding. And you'll have water. Nil spoke before Destry realized he was behind her. You're here! She hugged him hard and decided not to let go for a while. Where were you? The network showed you with the boring fleet, but I couldn't reach you. I wanted to monitor the river. I've been out there all night. I knew you two were safe. He turned to whistle and his voice went ragged. I should have grabbed the glass and sent you a text, but we had so many things to do and I thought you were fine. The river. I saw the footage. It's beautiful. I think we scored one for water management today. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. Nils showed no sign of ending the hug, and they stayed like that for a while, with Midnight and Lucky standing in companionable silence alongside them. Ever since she shot a fleet of drones out of the sky, Midnight had risen quite far in Destry's estimation. She'd begun to wonder whether Long's comment about his partner being a heartbreaker was, in fact, an attempt to plant seeds of mistrust between them. It was clear now that Midnight truly cared for Whistle, and for the city he'd chosen as his new home. She hadn't had a chance to talk to the other Moose aeronauts who saved Spider, so she wasn't sure what motivated them. Obviously, there was a lot going on at L'Orange that had flown way over her sparsely furred Homo sapiens head. So what's the plan for this meeting with Verdance? Lucky was bouncing up and down like they were ready to rip through a day's work in 10 minutes. First, we need to go over the terms they're offering, and then we'll set the meeting. Destry released Nil, keeping his hand folded within hers. I'd recommend taking your time with the treaty because Verdance will try to get all kinds of sneaky shit in there. Midnight shook her head and a few small crusts of mud fell to the floor. Like Destry, she hadn't left Whistle's side for more than a few minutes. Both of them needed to wash up, especially after recycling all the Verdance drones. The boring fleet had clanged with laughter as they appropriated piles of sticky, shattered carapaces, pledging to build new vessels with them. I've called a council meeting for this afternoon. We need to create a treaty team. Lucky swiped one of the apricots from Destry's untouched bowl, sitting precariously on a shelf, mostly taken up by hot water bottles. And you need to be there, so eat your breakfast. Destry took her bowl and spooned some oatmeal into her mouth. It was nutty and still slightly warm, tart with fruit and yogurt, with an overwhelming flavor of the ash she'd inhaled last night. Everything tasted wrong. Her stomach was hungry, but her mouth wasn't. Midnight flicked her ears forward. He's waking up. Whistle was moving around ever so slightly, swaying in the sling. An Archaean and a Moose walked purposefully down the hall towards them. The Moose texted, "We're the health team on Whistle's case. I'm Silver and this is Lettuce." The Moose gestured at the Archaean with their nose. Lettuce pulled a breather out of their shirt pocket and looked at Midnight. "I'm going to check on how his brain repair is going." "Of course. Silver can brief you on what to expect now that he's waking up." Nobody addressed Destry, and she was glad Nil was still there, holding her hand. Silver texted something privately to Midnight. Midnight replied publicly, "Don't cut Destry out of this. She's been Whistle's friend a lot longer than I have." Her text had that slightly bitchy edge that once made Destry suspect her of ill intentions, but now she could have kissed her for being so bristly. Silver was briefly taken aback, but recovered quickly. They continued, "As you probably know, these kinds of repairs can be finicky. He'll probably regain all his old memories, but sometimes a few things get lost in the shuffle. He might have some problems with movement for a few weeks. I'd like to keep him here in rehab and monitor him for at least 3 days after he's fully awake, if that suits him." The Moose paused, then looked at Destry for the first time. "You Homo sapiens, you L'Orange settlers, why would you build someone like this? He's never had molecular scrubbers or tissue repair. It's disgusting. Shit-covered crime." Silver huffed angrily, but then regained composure. "How can you call yourself his friend?" Destry felt the bite of oatmeal she'd swallowed turn into a nauseating lump in her stomach. Midnight snorted, "Do you think Destry built Whistle? Do you think she runs Verdance? Or do you think she's the person who warned your city about the attack and then stood in a lava surge at Fort Kenyon to save your hairy ass?" The door to Whistle's room shushed open, and Lettuce snapped their fingers to bring up a hologram they could all see. "If anyone wants to know what I think, it's that Whistle is going to be ready to see his friends in the next few minutes." The tension eased as they peered at Lettuce's readout, which offered a sliceable view of Whistle's brain. Lettuce cut to the area that was rapidly repairing itself as polymer wires grew to replace damaged neurons. "It looks like he suffered a trauma to his cerebral cortex a very long time ago, but the good news is that injury has also been repaired. I've introduced some scrubbers to his bloodstream, but I'm afraid they won't have the same impact they might if he had had them since decanting. Still, it should boost his life expectancy by a few decades." "Midnight?" Whistles had blearily sent his text to everyone within 20 meters. You can go in, Silver said. Then, grudgingly, they looked at Destry. You too. Nil and Lucky waited outside with the doctors as Destry followed Midnight into the warm room that smelled faintly of yeast from the probiotics. The two moose pressed their soft noses together, nostrils flaring, and Midnight curled her neck around his, carefully avoiding the sling. Whistle blinked a few times. I can't believe you're here. I don't remember anything after seeing Destry in the water. What happened? Neither of them could say anything for a minute. Whistle was using multisyllabic words, which could only mean one thing. His vocabulary limiter, the trauma that Lettuce identified, had been repaired. A Verdance engineer would probably say his INAS rating had jumped to person level. Whistle could send freely now, thanks to the shoddy monomer regeneration system that L'Orange engineers installed in mounts. 2 deliberate design flaws had finally canceled each other out. Whistle, your brain, it was injured. We had to regenerate it. The moose looked at them both, white showing around the edges of his dark eyes. He struggled to stand, but the sling supporting his head, neck, and belly held him snug a few centimeters off the floor. Relaxing his back legs, he grunted in pain. All right, so that's it for Chapter 18. Would love to hear your thoughts, and join us next time for Chapter 22. All right, have a good one, folks.